When it comes to running shoes, there are so many options. Carbon shoes, daily shoes, max stack shoes, recovery run shoes, trail shoes, and so much jargon to go along with them all as well. And if you're new to running, it can be completely overwhelming. So today we're going to go right back to basics and teach you everything you need to know about running shoes in really simple terms and make the video that I wish I had access to when I started running, but that was a long time ago, well before YouTube. First off, let's chat about all the jargon and terminology. Starting out with stack height. This is basically how tall the shoes are and is measured at the back of the shoe at the heel. Most shoes these days will tend to be around about 35 to 45 millimeters. The bigger the stack height of the shoe, the more foam there is going to be underfoot, so the more cushioning and less ground feel you're going to get. Next up, let's have a chat about the drop of the shoe. This is the difference between the stack height at the heel and the stack height at the front of the shoe. Most shoes tend to be around about 5 to 10 millimeters of drop. Lower drop shoes, say something below around 6 millimeters, tend to load the lower leg more, so your calves and your Achilles and your ankle, whereas higher drop shoes, say above 6 millimeters, tend to load the muscles higher up the leg and the knee and the hip a little bit more. There's really no right or wrong thing here. Different people prefer different types of running shoes, different feelings as they run along. Most beginner runners tend to start with a higher drop shoe while they strengthen up and ease into the sport. The upper of the shoe is next, and the upper is the material on the top of the shoe, so the heel cup, the tongue, the laces, and all of the mesh that covers the top of the shoe, responsible for most of the comfort and the breathability here. So often in my reviews I'll talk about breathability because some shoes are going to be better in warm weather or cold weather and things like that, and this all comes into play in the upper and how much air can flow through the shoe to cool the feet down. Midsole is next up, and this is referring to the foam of the shoe and any plates that there are in the shoe as well. You get lots of different midsole compounds. Some are soft, some are firm. Some shoes will have multiple different foams in them as well, so you might have a soft layer of foam for a bouncy poppy ride and then a firmer, more hard wearing foam in there as well for good durability and stability as well. And then finally, let's have a chat about the outsole, and this is in very simple terms the layer of rubber that is along the bottom of the shoe that's providing all the grip. Road shoes tend to have a smoother outsole. Trail shoes are going to have deeper lugs for better traction. Adidas and Puma tend to have the best outsoles on the market in terms of grip, which is particularly important at the time of year that this video is going out in the winter time. Right, let's have a chat about all of the different types of shoes that are available, because of course not all running shoes are created equally. Starting out with the most common type of running shoes, a shoe that is generally termed the daily running shoe. The absolute classics here would be something like the Nike Vomero, the New Balance 1080, or the Asics Nova Blast. These shoes have been designed to do all sorts of different types of runs pretty well, but not excel in any particular area. They're going to be pretty comfortable, they're going to be durable, fairly moderately priced as well, and can fit on lots of different types of feet, so they're very accommodating. Anyone that just wants one shoe to do it all should start here with that daily shoe, or anyone that wants to start building a bigger shoe rotation should start here with their daily shoe as their first shoe. Moving on, let's have a chat about carbon plated race shoes, or some people just call these carbon shoes or my carbons. These shoes are for any runs where you want to go particularly fast, such as in a race or a speed session. They're usually quite lightweight, or as the name implies, they're going to have a carbon plate inside of the midsole as well, or some brands such as Adidas, for example, they will have carbon rods. The plate or the rods in the shoe are designed to give you a lot of extra propulsion. They load up and they spring you forward, and then the plates are combined with very reactive springy foams as part of their construction. But surely you want to run really fast on every run that you go on. Why wouldn't you wear these all the time for all of your runs? But they do come with a few downsides. First of all, they're pretty expensive, usually well over £200 for a pair of shoes. They tend to not last very long either, and generally they're nowhere near as comfortable as a daily shoe. Plus they do put a little bit of extra strain on the body due to the geometry and the setup of the shoe, which is okay in short bursts such as during races, but over the course of a long term, just having a standard daily shoe is going to look after your body a little bit better. Plus, there's really no benefit from the plate if you're just jogging around at quite slow speeds, which is where for a lot of people their bulk of their weekly mileage would be. So if you are just jogging around in carbon plated race shoes, all you're really doing is just shortening the lifespan of the shoe. Some pretty good examples here in this category, something like the Nike Alphafly, the Asics Metaspeed series, so the Sky and the Edge, or the Adidas Adios Pro 4. So runners that have these shoes will tend to do most of their training miles in a daily shoe and then use their faster shoe, their carbon plated race shoe, when it matters. So on race day or getting their key speed sessions when they're really sort of going all out in their reps, getting ready for their race day. Moving on to have a chat about speed and tempo shoes, because in recent years manufacturers have started adding less aggressive plates in their shoes, usually in the form of a nylon plate, which tends to be a little bit more flexible and so a little bit more forgiving, really good for the mass market to be using. So these shoes tend to be marketed as speed shoes or tempo shoes as well. Some good examples here, something like the Saucony Speed or the Nike Zoom Fly or Mizuno's Neo Vista. These are a really good option for someone wanting to try a plate in their shoe for the first time but doesn't want that super aggressive full-on carbon plated race shoe and the expense that goes along with those type of shoes as well. So naturally these shoes aren't going to be quite as fast as the full-on carbon race shoes, but they're probably going to be a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more durable and last a little bit longer as well. Moving on, let's have a chat about long run shoes. These are shoes that have obviously been designed to be particularly good at running for a long period of time. So anyone training for a half marathon or a marathon, really when you're going out for runs of say 90 minutes or longer, that's kind of where the sort of long run classification starts to come in. Then using a shoe in this category could give you some good benefits. These shoes tend to have a slightly higher stack height than average, so a little bit more foam underneath them in the midsole, and they also tend to be slightly more on the firmer side of things as well, that make them particularly good for those long runs or runs with race pace blocks in. Typical examples of this, something like the Asics Super Blast, the Puma Mag Max, or the Brooks Glycerin Max. They're also particularly good options here for any heavier runners out there, as the foam isn't so soft that it's going to be bottoming out as they run, and they're also going to be a little bit more durable than the standard daily trainers as well. Daily shoes are of course going to be fine for long runs if you just want one shoe to do it all, but as the mileage increases throughout your training plan, those specific long run shoes should look after your legs even better than that. And then finally here, let's have a chat about sort of your easy run, jogging, recovery run type shoes. These shoes, again, similar to the long run shoes, have a higher stack height, so a lot more foam underneath them. The long run shoes are a little bit more on the firmer side. These are very much on the softer, very squishy, very like marshmallowy side of things to help really absorb that impact with a much more plush midsole. The purpose of these shoes is to provide that maximum amount of comfort, but the downside here is they tend to be a little bit heavier, a little bit bulkier. So if you did want to pick up the pace and run a little bit faster in the shoe, that's going to be particularly hard work. But really, they're not designed for that, so it doesn't really matter. Good examples in this category, something like the New Balance More line, the Nike Vomero Premium, or the Asics Gel Nimbus. So if you simply want the most comfortable shoe on your feet, with a nice, soft, super cushioned experience to look after your legs as much as possible, then you could start your search here. And then finally, another couple of little categories here talking about trail shoes. If you plan to run off-road, then trail shoes are going to have a much grippier outsole on the bottom of them to give you much better traction. They're going to have more durable uppers as well, potentially some Gore-Tex materials in there to keep your feet nice and dry, and they're going to have extra protection usually up at the front of the shoe for any rocks and roots. Some popular trail models out there at the moment, something like the Hoka Speed Go is really one of the most classic trail shoes of all time. The Salomon Speed Cross, the Saucony Peregrine, and then finally have a quick chat about spikes. You tend to get two different types of spikes these days, track spikes or cross-country spikes. Cross-country spikes are built for rough, uneven terrain and have more cushioning than their track spikes counterpart. They're also going to have longer spikes in at the bottom of them, which are going to be particularly good on any grass and mud. Track spikes, on the other hand, are designed for speed and running on very flat surfaces. They're designed for running on the track, surprisingly. They're going to be lighter with a stiffer sole, and they're going to have shorter spikes in the bottom. We should also point out here is that you don't have to have track spikes to run on the track. Just your regular running shoes are fine for the vast majority of people out there. I've very rarely in my life ever put track spikes on to run on a track, and I've only put cross-country spikes on to do one cross-country race in my life. But I think cross-country spikes for cross-country runners can be quite a good idea. But generally, you can wear your regular road shoes on the track, or you could wear your regular trail shoes to do a cross-country race, and it's going to be absolutely fine. And as important as it is to find amazing running shoes, you've got to pair them with a really awesome pair of running socks to get the most out of them and enjoy every run in comfort. Coincidentally, we've just launched a new range of running socks. They've been going down so well, we've pretty much sold out, but we've got a new delivery about to arrive any day now. And feel free to use code YouTube10 for 10% off your order. Thanks very much, guys. You might have heard of some shoes being illegal or above the legal limit. This only really matters when it comes to racing and competitions, though. So what is the legal height for shoes? Can you race in them? And will you be disqualified if you do? Every race will conform to a different set of rules. And in the UK, most running races use the UK Athletics set of rules. In their rules, they use the World Athletics list of accepted shoes. We'll link to that down below, so you can check on here to see if the shoes you're using will comply. There are two different ways that shoes can be illegal. Firstly, the stack height can be too high, 20 millimeters of stack height for running on the track and 40 millimeters for running on the roads. To give an example of this, two of the most popular shoes out there, the Asics Nova Blast and Asics Super Blast, are both technically illegal shoes to be racing in because they're well above the legal limit. The second way that shoes can be deemed illegal is they have more than one carbon plate, or a carbon plate and a set of rods, or two sets of rods in the shoe. A good example here would be the Adidas Prime X3, which has a set of rods and also a separate carbon plate in the shoe. Now, with road running races, it is incredibly unlikely that anyone is going to check your shoes unless you're a pro competing for prize money and or trying to get on the podium. But technically, of course, you will be breaking the rules by running in an overheight shoe or a shoe that has too many plates in it. In all of my years running, I've never heard of any non-elite runner getting in trouble, and I'd hazard a guess that thousands of runners in every road race that happens all around the world will be running in illegal stack height shoes, are either completely oblivious to the fact that they are, or they simply do not care. In track races, you're definitely far more likely to be checked, so please check in with the race organizer that's putting on that race to see if they are going to be enforcing that 20mm stack height. In triathlon, they pretty much always do enforce these rules, so make sure you're racing in a shoe that is that legal height and use the checker above just to make sure that your shoe is on that list, or you're on the very real possibility of being disqualified, possibly before you even start the race. So why do illegal shoes exist? Why are they even made? Well, as we said earlier, there are two different types here. They're either going to be too high or they're going to have too many plates in them. The ones that are too high, generally these are going to look after your legs really quite nicely on your long runs. Essentially, they're just a very good training tool to allow you to get more mileage in. And then when it comes to more race specific shoes that might have multiple rods or multiple carbon plates in the shoe, manufacturers are just trying to experiment to push the boundaries of what's possible, the likes of the Adidas Prime X3 or the Puma Fast RB Nitro Elite. But the vast majority of race shoes that they make, they want to stick inside the rules so their pros can wear them, they can promote their brand and promote the product. For me, I'll only ever want to run my races in legal shoes, as I want my times to be legit, and that's just how I feel. The difficulty really is if you are, say, a 4-hour marathon and want a nice comfy pair of shoes to run your race. Well, in 2025, most daily shoes are technically on the illegal side. But at the end of the day, we're all competing against ourselves and no one else really. None of us are really competing for those podium places in the marathons these days. So do whatever you feel is right for you. But like I say, thousands of runners in every road race all around the country and around the world will be wearing illegal shoes in their races, and absolutely nothing is going to happen. Moving on, let's have a chat about stability shoes versus neutral shoes. This whole category is to do with how your foot strikes the ground and rolls through the foot strike. Almost all runners are going to have some level of pronation where the foot rolls inwards, but if this roll is excessive, you might well experience some knee or hip pain as you're overcompensating. Therefore, having a little bit of extra support on the inside of your shoes could help, and that's where the stability shoes come in. Something like the Nike Structure, the Brooks Adrenaline GTS, or the Asics Kayano. There are various tests you can do, such as the wet foot test, to see if you might need a stability shoe if you want to test these things out at home. If you are at all unsure, we'd always recommend getting out and getting yourself into a running store, having them assess you on the treadmill, get the cameras on there, slow the footage down, and see how the foot is moving through that foot strike. So how often should you change your running shoes? Well, as always, there's a lot of different factors that come into play here. It depends so much on how you run, your running style, where the shoe lands during the foot strike, your body weight, the terrain that you're running on. But on average, shoes tend to last between about 300 to 500 miles. You're going to know when it's time to replace your shoe when the foam starts to feel a little bit dull, starts to feel a little bit compressed. If you just squish it in your hands and it doesn't respond back in the same way, again, the life of the shoe is coming to an end. The outsole might be quite worn down by now, and you might also start to get a few aches and pains in some of your runs as well, indicating the shoes might not be providing as much support as they did when they were new. Most modern apps such as Garmin or Strava or Course, you can log your shoes on there, track the mileage, and then again, you tend to have an idea of when it's going to be the right time to change your shoes. Now, a lot of people ask me, how can I make my running shoes last longer? Running shoes are so expensive these days. We want to get the most value we can out of them. It's generally advised that rotating between 2 different pairs of shoes will last longer than having 1 pair of shoes, wearing it solidly, and then replacing it with another pair of shoes, which is why a lot of people tend to have a bit of a shoe rotation going on. This is because, like us, when we finish a run, we like to recover. Our shoes also like to recover as well, and they just need a little bit of extra time for that foam to decompress and to bounce back between the runs we're going on. Generally, obviously taking care of them is a good thing to do. Drying them out if they get particularly wet, so stuffing some newspaper inside or getting a dedicated shoe dryer. Washing off any excessive dirt after each run and undoing your laces when you take them off. So don't ram down the back of the shoe trying to get them on or get them off. Save your running shoes just for running. Again, ideally using them for walking and sort of daily activities is obviously going to wear them out a bit quicker. You can probably just buy more of a casual, much cheaper shoe for those type of activities. There's also sticky patches you can buy to prolong the life of your trainer. The company that we usually recommend here is a company called Trainer Armour, and if you are getting some holes in any of your trainers, you can just patch them up with their patches. Right, let's finish off now with a bit of a quick fire section on all the other questions that people ask me almost on a daily basis all about running shoes. So can you use gym or casual shoes for running? Well, ideally not. Regular casual trainers like your Converses or your Vans, for example, are really going to lack the necessary cushioning that you need for your running. There's going to be no support in there, really no shock absorption either, for the high impact nature that running is, and quite likely going to lead some injuries pretty quickly. So if you can, definitely get out and buy a dedicated pair of running shoes. Do you need special shoes to run on a treadmill? No, just your regular daily shoes will be absolutely fine. Running on a treadmill really is no different from running outside from a footwear point of view. Will carbon shoes make me run faster? This is such an interesting topic. Generally, I tend to find that if your race pace is faster than around about 5:45 a kilometre or 9:15 a mile, or around about 4-hour marathon pace, then you're going to feel a benefit to having a carbon plated race shoe. If your race pace is slower than this, then you're probably going to have a much more enjoyable experience in either a nylon plated shoe or just a regular dedicated daily shoe or long run shoe. And they will undoubtedly feel far more comfortable if you're going out there for 4, 5 or 6 hours or more over the course of a marathon distance. But of course, there's absolutely no reason why someone can't wear a pair of Alpha Flies and go out to run a 5-hour marathon. It's whatever you feel comfortable in. There's going to be a little bit of a placebo effect by making sure you've got the very best of everything on your feet. Just do whatever makes you happy and whatever makes you feel the most confident standing on the start line. So where should you buy your running shoes from? Ideally, get into a running store and get fitted and try out a few different things. When I do buy shoes online, I tend to just get them from Sport Shoes or Start Fitness. Also like to go to Run Limited in London and Run and Become. But please list your favourite options down in the comments and share and promote your local running store. I'd personally never buy any brand new shoes off eBay or Vinted because just the risk in stumbling into some fake shoes, but they can be really good websites to pick up some second-hand shoes. And with so many people choosing to buy their running shoes online these days, and retailers generally don't allow you to send back shoes that you've used and you didn't get on with, then there really is a big booming second-hand market out on websites such as eBay and Vinted, so you can pick up some really good deals on some very lightly used shoes there as well. So how should your shoe fit? Well, a snug fit around the heel and the midfoot with enough room in the toe box for your toes to wiggle and spread out. Typically half to a full thumb's width between your longest toe and the front of the shoe is your general guidance. And moving on to that, do you need wide fit shoes? If sometimes you feel pinching at the side of your foot, then maybe this is something to look into. Some brands are renowned for being a little bit on the narrow side, such as Adidas, Puma and Salomon, and some manufacturers are particularly good at offering very wide options such as New Balance, Brooks and Hoka. So if you feel like you need a wider fitted shoe, then they're good places to start your search. So what is a shoe rotation and what should it look like? Well, as we said at the start of this video, it's really important to start with that daily shoe. That's going to be the first shoe in any rotation. You're going to have a big chunk of your weekly mileage done in that daily shoe. Then you might want to add in a carbon plated race shoe or potentially a speed and tempo shoe, depending on what type of shoe you want. And for a lot of people, that's the shoe they're going to be doing their races in. So a race day shoe will be next on the list. Then if you are training for a marathon or a half marathon distance, you may want to then get a dedicated long run shoe as the third shoe in your rotation. And then instead of that, or as well as that, you may want to add in a recovery run shoe, just to look after the legs in the most comfortable and impact absorbing way possible. So do you need the absolute latest and greatest shoes out there when a new model releases? Should you go out and buy it straight away? Well, of course not. Most running shoes tend to have a fairly limited update each year if you are looking at, again, in that sort of classic daily shoe segment. So looking at last year's models can definitely save you some really good money. So there we have it. If you've got any more shoe questions, then drop them down in the comments. Next up, we've got a video over here with the best daily running shoes that I've ran in this year. And over here, we've got a full, more in-depth video of how to build that shoe rotation. That's it, guys. Keep working hard. Keep on it done. I'll see you very soon in the next one.